Hey guys, welcome to Wood.Work.LIFE. So today, to continue my theme of shop organization through this summer, I'm building a router table. And I'm trying to make this table as easy to build as possible with as many features as possible. So it only uses 2 sheets of plywood and all pocket holes. So let's get after it. When I go to build anything where I'm going to share the plan, I try to make sure that I build from the plan itself. That way if there's any tweaks that I need to make as I go, I can make them before I publish the plans. And in this case, it was a little bit special. This project's actually being sponsored by Kreg to showcase their precision router lift and router top system. And thanks to Kreg, the plans will be available for free from the buildsomething.com website. I'll link to that down below in the description. This project uses 1.5 sheets of 3/4 inch plywood and about half a sheet of 1/2 inch plywood. So what that means is there's a lot of batch cuts to start out with. I like to take my batch cuts sort of one step at a time. First, I cut everything to width at the table saw, and then I'll cross cut it to the final length. I like doing it this way so I only have to set up the tool once, and then I can cut everything to the exact same dimensions. Now with all of my cut list complete, I can move on to pocket holing all of the mating surfaces for all my boards. And for this I'm using the Kreg K5 system. This whole project is built with pocket holes and just a few screws through the back of the cabinet. Real simple construction. Pocket holes are a really easy way to do cabinet and casework like this, but if you didn't want to hide the plugs, you could use dowels. You could also consider dados, should be strong enough in this type of application. Or if you wanted to really go overkill, you could use box joints at all the corners. I'm not gonna lie, I just kinda go on like this for quite a while, so let's go ahead and fast forward through this next part. Much better. Alright, so now that that's done, it's time to actually start assembling everything. Each of the joints was glued and screwed with 1.25" pocket hole screws. I started with the drawers. I'm not really sure why, but I guess I just wanted to get them finished and out of the way first. Those small achievements kind of help you driving through a project like this. This isn't a particularly big project, but it should take a whole of a long weekend. Now, if you wanted to build this for a customer, and I don't know why you would build it for a customer, you might want to actually rabbet in the bottoms of these drawers, but since this is shop furniture, I just went ahead and glued and screwed the bottoms of the drawers, which is plenty strong enough. If you're really interested in testing out these drawers or this particular construction method, you can check out a video from Matthias where he actually tested this type of method versus an actual rabbeted drawer. I'll link to that video down below. Next, it was time to assemble the vertical drawers. I actually call these Jackman Drawers because I've really just wanted to use them ever since seeing his workbench build. He did a build where he used these instead of horizontal drawers, and they just make a whole lot more sense. You can store a lot more vertically, and you can hang French cleat, and you can hang pegboard, really whatever. They're just really versatile drawers. Now, I messed up a little bit here and actually drilled the top and bottom into the face of the long side of the drawer. The plans actually tell you how to do it correctly, but just goes to show you, make sure you read the whole plan before you actually start working. Next, it was time to lay out for the actual carcass of the cabinet. With this, I had the top and bottom laid out, and I just wanted to mark a really accurate center line. This way I can mark a center line on the top and bottom of the cabinet, and then a center line on one of the drawer dividers to use as a spacer to get perfect spacing all the way up and down for the vertical supports, I don't know, the sides of the carcass. With all these marks aligned, I could go ahead and lay down a bead of glue, and then just screw in the 2 vertical supports. To attach the top or bottom, it really doesn't matter at this point. You would just repeat that step by flipping over the piece of furniture, putting that same drawer divider into the center of the piece, gluing and screwing, rinse and repeat. Now to place the actual drawer dividers at a consistent height, I'm sure this isn't the first time you've seen this, but if it is, I cut 4 blocks of wood to the height that I wanted the bottom of that middle shelf and the bottom shelf, and then I use those as reference points to rest the shelf on before gluing and screwing it into place. Now to this point, all the major components are assembled, so I went ahead and did a dry fit just to make sure that nothing needed any adjustment. Now, from there, I wanted to dress it up just a little bit. I kind of want to make my shop somewhere I actually want to work in, and just slop together pieces of scrap furniture glued back together don't really work for me anymore. So I wanted to build a little bit of a face frame, but I did use red oak, I guess one of my least favorite woods. But it's really easy and I had an extra board laying around, so I just put that in there. If you didn't want to mess around with the face frame, you could also just expand the width of all of the pieces in the cut diagram by 1 inch, just to account for that 1 inch face frame. But it is a nice little touch if you want it to look a little bit more finished and make your shop just a little bit homier place to be in. With the face frame all installed, it was time to move on to the drawer hardware. I have these designs built around this 1/2 inch drawer slide. You can pick these up on Amazon, they're linked down below. All of the dimensions on the cut list are built for these drawer slides, so if you are going to use any different drawer slides, make sure you read the specifications and adjust the dimensions accordingly. This is another little hack I do sometimes on shop furniture. So I don't get them to the exact dimension I'm shooting for at the end, and I just trim that last little bit on the table saw. That way I ensure that those 2 little indents there are perfectly square, and then when I install the drawers, they can rest right down on top of the drawer slides. It's just a little bit easier to install and a little bit easier to nail that perfect fit. I wouldn't do this on a customer piece, but it's just a quick way to put together shop furniture. From there I moved on to milling the drawer faces and the cabinet, vertical sliding drawer faces. I use that same board. Again, this is a piece of red oak. I actually picked this up at the St. Louis Woodworking show. It was like $1 a board foot. I don't like to use any nice woods in my shop. You know, some people might, but I guess red oak is good enough for my shop. So I used this board. It was under a lot of tension, a lot of stress, and I didn't feel like milling it to full dimension. So I actually just used it kind of in a rough sawn state. I like that rough sawn state for a shop because you can knock it with a hammer or brush by it with whatever and not really worry about beating it up. If you wanted to finish it to a full smooth finish with a planer and joiner, go for it. That's all you. I also added just a little bit of a decorative detail, really just to relieve the corner with a chamfer on the end of each of the drawer faces. To get the drawer spacing just right, I use a little cheater technique where I put 2 screws through the face of the drawer without actually driving them in. Then I used a hammer just to mark the back of the drawer face with those screws that were protruding so that I could attach it permanently in just a second. If you wanted to be really fancy with this, you could of course use like double stick tape or a little bit of hot glue, but this is just the fastest way that I've found to do this, and it works pretty reliably. You can also adjust it as long as your drawer face are pretty thick material like this. I did use self-tapping screws, that way I wouldn't split any of the wood. Next I used just a drawer hardware jig to mark where I wanted to drill the holes for the front of the hardware. I used these rounded handles just so I wouldn't catch them on anything as I walked by. I linked to all the little bits and bobs I bought off Amazon to complete this build down below, and if you do build this, I'd love to see it, so share with me on Twitter or Instagram, and I'd love to help if you have any questions. The next step that I had to do was clear out some spots for the leveling feet. Now, you won't have to do this if you follow the plans on buildsomething.com, because again, this is one of the modifications I made to the plans after building it myself. The center compartment in this initial design was just a little bit too narrow to accommodate the opening in the router table and that additional space for those leveling feet. So what I did is I actually carved out a recess for each of those feet using my palm router. But for you, if you actually follow the plans, I just widened that center compartment just by 1 inch on either side, and that way you can just drop it right in without any crazy cuts. So you can either plunge cut it or just cut it with a jigsaw, whatever you're more comfortable with. With that all completed, it was time to just fit these awesome Kreg components. So here's the Kreg Precision Router Table top. Next, it was time to install the Precision Router Table lift. So this is a new thing from Kreg, and it's really, really nice. Finally, I installed the tabletop with a couple of 1.5-inch screws. And finally, I installed Kreg's Precision Router Table Fence, which has a lot of really neat features like a router bit guide and some dust collection that's integrated right into the fence. All you have to do is line it up with your favorite combination square and make sure it's relatively square to that track, and then tighten it down. That would probably be my one knock on this entire system, is this isn't like a Beastmeyer fence, so it doesn't self-square. So you'll still want to check it for any like precision cuts that you're going to be doing. One nice thing I really appreciated about the router lift is it raises high enough you can actually change the bits while the router is still installed, and then it's got a really quick up and down mechanism. I do really appreciate the dust collection, but it still throws quite a few chips as you can see from this close-up. I did quite a bit of work as I was working out the design to try to make sure it had the optimal dust collection, because I'm really annoyed by router chips as they fly around your shop. Fortunately, most of the heavy stuff sort of just dropped into the chamber without a vacuum at all, but I did add on my personal setup this 4-inch dust port from Harbor Freight. It's a really cheap setup if you want to just add a port to any tool. And then I cut that out and drilled it into the back of the back plate and attached it to the back of the tools so I could attach it to my full-size dust collection system. This is optional. I'm pretty sure if you enclosed it and just used a shop vac, this would at least capture all of the large chips so you could empty them out with your shop vac later. To close up the front of the router compartment, I chose to use a Lexan panel. This way I could monitor and look at the dust chips and make sure I emptied it before it became a problem. But if you're diligent about this kind of thing, I guess you could just use a sheet of plywood or whatever to close it up. It doesn't really matter. I used some scrap from what I'd milled up earlier to just cut sort of a pocket hold face frame cabinet, and then milled a 1/8 inch groove in there to fit the Lexan. This isn't a particularly pretty cabinet door, but it works and it goes together really quickly. And if you ever snap it off, you'll not lose any sleep over it. This is shop furniture after all. With that final cabinet door in place, all that was left was to add the casters. Now I added these casters, 3-inch casters, to give myself a little bit of a toe kick. That way my feet had somewhere to go while I'm using the table. Then it was just time to tilt it up and it's done. I really like the way these vertical drawers turned out. I'm probably going to install some French cleats in there. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to store, but I know I have a lot of storage space. I'm definitely going to keep my bits in this bottom drawer. I'll start with these 2 sets that I have just because they're already in containers, but I'll probably build some sort of bit container holder kind of thing because I've got a lot more bits than just these 2 sets. So I'll get after that sometime soon. And then this top drawer up here, I'm going to use this to sort of hold all of the bits and nonsense that go with my router, at least for now, like these stupid wrenches that you can never find when you need them. So at least I know where this will be from now on. I really like the way this router table turned out. It's going to add a lot of versatility and much needed storage space in my shop. I'm going to try to carry that theme throughout the rest of the summer and building some more shop organizational projects, along with my other stuff as well. But be sure to get subscribed if you want to check some of that stuff out. Also, drop a like on this video if you like shop projects. I'm going to try to knock out more of these because this shop is kind of getting a little bit unmanageable. I need to put some more time into it. Thanks for watching today. I also want to thank my sponsor, Kreg, for making those plans available for free on kregsbuildsomething.com. I've got that link down below in the description if you want to check that out. Also, if you want to support me further, check out my Patreon page. It's patreon.com/Wood.Work.LIFE. I've got some more plans on there that are available for free for my patrons, and also some other cool benefits like an open hangout session and some monthly chats and some bonus content. Like I actually had a rough edit of this video available about 2 weeks ago. So thanks for watching today. And remember, keep your tools sharp and keep your mind sharper.